Before we jump right into it, the first question I ask all of my guests is the same across the board, and to me, it's the biggest question of them all. So I will ask it to you now. Who are you, sir?
Well, that's a complicated question. My name is Donald King, um, and I'm originally from Dayton, Ohio, which ironically I live in again for some reason. I swear I would never be back there, but yeah, came back to hometown. Don't ask me how that worked out, but yeah. So, and just to give you a little bit of background, and I guess what would probably qualify me, or at least make me something of interest to speak to, in your format here, is I'm something called an avatar. Now, I'm going to try and give you the quickest breakdown I can of this. In the Hindu faith system, they refer to as an avatar as sort of a divine teacher, and I don't take it on that. They say it's a fleshly manifestation of a deity, right? And that's the closest definition that I could find to describe what it is. I house a function of reality. The phenomenon that humans would rightfully refer to as reality, or rightfully referred to as God, is reality. And just you, it's a living, sentient, self-aware system which manages balance between interdependent systems of systems. And by systems, I mean life forms or organisms, right? Because every life form, organism is a system. And well, I host a function of that thing. And because, for lack of a better expression, a thing descended from the system of reality and is housed within this shell, that makes me an avatar. I didn't even decide on that term. I didn't know what avatar was. The thing that I'm hosting is like, that's the thing we're going with. And I'm like, I don't like that. That's too much heat. I don't want that kind of heat. It's like, did I ask you what you thought? And I said, huh, I suppose not. So, anyway, I'm an avatar. I host a function of reality. In the Christian faith system, they refer to the thing that I host as Holy Ghost or Holy Spirit. And yeah, it's like, that's, I guess, for the most part, in terms of who I am, that would probably be the best description. I'm the successor of like, just in terms of housing this function of reality, I'm the successor of Quetzalcoatl, Kukulkan, Lao Tzu, the Buddha, Gandhi, and the individual the story of Jesus was based on. Um, and not through my determination. It's not even something I wanted to do. I was an atheist when all this stuff started. It just got dropped in my lap. Like, dude, this is, imagine thinking or believing that there was no such thing as baseball. There was no such thing as baseball. And everybody who walked around talking about stats and scores, they were all crazy and they were all stupid. Now imagine you didn't believe in baseball, and then all of a sudden you get whisked away to someplace, and for all intents and purposes, it's like they're like, you're up to bat. And I'm like, what the fuck? What? And it's like, yeah, they're like, yeah, baseball is really real now, isn't it? And I'm like, wait. I don't know the mechanics of this game. I don't know how to do any of this stuff. What's happening here? And that's basically what it was like. I didn't believe in any of it. And then all of a sudden, to find out you're supposed to swing for the fences or strike out, and you're like, oh, that's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure. So yeah, that's I guess the best way to describe how I am. None of this is based in my ideas. I'm hosting a thing. Imagine sharing your body with a thing you spent a decade of your life talking shit about. it's not it's not a welcome rooming situation. You gotta like,
Yeah.
wow, yeah. So that's where it's at with everything. And forgive my verbosity there, but
No worries, man. This is what the show's about. I'm trying to get your story. I want to know about you. So, give you a little bit of background on how I came to find you, real quick.
okay.
There's a subreddit called Awakened, and it's a place that I frequented in past years. And a few, I guess, probably a couple months ago now, maybe. I don't know. Time's a funny thing. It all blends together. But yeah, basically about a month ago, I got essentially a message that said, like, you need to go back there and you need to ask for people who want to share their stories, right? Maybe in a similar fashion to yourself. I felt compelled to do this. So I did. And a person reached out to me. Many people did actually, but one person in particular reached out to me and started telling me about this avatar thing. And I
Mhm.
was like, oh, it's very interesting. And then he was like, but this isn't me. This is someone that I know. And then he gave me your information. So essentially, this is how we came to have this conversation. And so um, the thing that I'm interested in, I mean, I'm interested in everything that you talked about, but the first thing I want to get into is, when did this get dropped into your lap, sir?
Dude, okay. So I would say around age 30, it was somewhere between 30, I want to say around 32. It was right around age 32. And the series of events around it is really weird. So and it's like I shot a video on this and I posted it on my YouTube channel, but I'll just give the cliff notes of it. There was this. I was a music producer at the time, an aspiring music producer and songwriter down in Atlanta, and that's what I was doing. I was moonlighting as that, but then during the day, it's like I was doing business to business sales. Anyway, I came across this one guy who was an aspiring artist, and he would come to my studio. And he wasn't really good. He wasn't really talented in the way that it's like I was looking for people to I, the way that I work in general is the higher your level of talent is, the further I can go with you. So it's like I match energy,
Mhm.
and but that is immaterial to why we crossed paths. Every day he was bringing in these little Christian pamphlets and he would want to read from the text. And I'm an atheist and a narcissist at the time. I was a raging narcissist. So I'm like, man, what the fuck ever, dude? Just like, if it helps you sing better, I don't care. Just do it. So he would read these little passages and whatnot. And what's really interesting is, he said, Don, God wants us to work together. This is ordained. And I'm like, oh man, God, shut up. And it's like, again, I was a raging narcissist back then. So just skip, skip, skip. And for anybody who wants to go and check it out, you can always go and look at the video. It's called So Heaven. And, what ends up happening is, through a series of events, one day I was as I was doing my sales job during the day, I was doing sales down in Georgia, and I got some really tough no's that had, like, some other sort of maliciousness behind them. And I was ready to go back to the office, and he calls me when I'm on my phone, and he says, Don, and you have to forgive me as I use this voice, because this is how I heard him in my mind back then. It was really annoying. It was kind of grating on my nerves. But he was like, Don, God is about to send you people in signs. Accept them when they come. And he said, God told me to tell you something. He's about to send you people in signs. Accept them when they come. And I'm like, whatever. And I swear to you, this is how it happened. Over the course of the next 2 to 3 weeks, either through happenstance, I got paired with people who were Hindu, Jewish, um, let me see, Christian, Muslim. I'm just getting paired with these random people. And we're talking about God, but we never spoke of religion.
Mm.
And what happens was, it was just sort of reframing the way that I had been thinking about it. And like, I grew up Jehovah's as a Jehovah's Witness, and I hated that. You know why? And how I actually became an atheist through that faith system is because I came to equate it in all things of a theological nature with bullying. That's what it felt like to me, and very much in the way that a lot of people become anti-fascist. They're against bullying, but they just want to, they switch sides. They want to transfer their rage into someone,
Yep.
and their rage at bullying makes them want to target someone so they can release their anger into them. And in that same way, I became an atheist, where I just needed to define myself against that.
Of course.
So yeah, what that's how it, and I ended up after you said, except these people in science, they're come and I skipped a very important part there, because that night I went home and I had a dream, and I recall being outside my parents' house, and everyone was huddled upstairs together in my room, and they were scared because the world had lost the concept of God, and I was the one who walked in as an atheist at this time, and I had no concept of God or heaven and any of those other things. I'm the one who walked in and said, guys, don't worry, God is real. Next day, I got paired with a guy named Nazir. Now, he was raised in the Muslim faith system, but he like myself, he was very well. He's very much an atheist. He hated what it represented at an ideological level. It was mental laziness, and he was a brilliant guy. And we spent the whole day bashing religion until we get to the final door on our stop, on our sales stop, and it's an old church. It looks like it's abandoned, right? And this church, it looks like it's abandoned. I don't know this guy too well at the time, so I figured the boss had him shadowing me that day because it's like I clocked out earlier. I clocked out early and skipped meeting the previous day. But anyway, we knock on the door and this little short guy. He pops out and he's like dark skinned and one of his eyes are like off center, right? And he looked kind of like a comic book character. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And here's the funny part about it. At the time, I was a narcissist. I was pretty done, and it's like again, I was a terrible person, and I'm happy to admit that. But the funny thing about it is, this man, he stepped into me, and before I could react, he extended his hand and he shook my hand. And the strangest thing happened. This calm overcame me. And it's like I knew this man for lifetimes. So we're in here trying to make the sale. My buddy Nas, he's dropping the sale. I step forward and I'm like, I saved the sale because I charmed the church secretary. It's like I was good at like being charming and stuff like that back then. But then out of nowhere, something overcame me, and it said, "Who is that man?" And again, I'm a narcissist back then, so I don't care. Something overtook me and made me say, "Who is that man?" Because why would I care? But anyway, she's like, "Oh, he's our prophet." And both me and Nas, we spent the whole day bashing religion. So of course we were ready to just start clowning. And then the guy, Nas was like, "Oh yeah, he's a prophet. Tell him to come in here and tell my future." And I'm like, "Dude, we just made the sale. Don't ruin the sale. Stop." So it's like, he comes in there and he puts his hands around me. He says, "God has a powerful calling on your life. Your life is about to change in a major way. You're a musician. You cook. You this. You that." And you start going down a list of things about me. And I'm like, "Oh, I know this. Yeah. Okay. So you're psychic. Ooh." I'm a black man in Atlanta. Of course I do music. Again, I'm very dismissive. I was very condescending.
Cynical.
It's very cynical. That's not what got me. He goes over to Nas and he says, "Why?" My buddy Nas, who passed away just last year, and he points at the book that we were selling out of. He says, "Why are you doing this? You were a project manager at your last job." He was like, "Yeah, I was a project manager at an engineering firm." He was like, "Yeah, yeah. And you just finished some schooling, didn't you?" He said, "Yeah, I just finished some certification courses for some this and that." And then the guy comes over to me and he takes me and he turns me to the clock. Now, I told you, Vince called me. I don't know if I mentioned this, but Vince called me at 3:50 on the clock. And it wasn't me who was paying attention to it being 3:50 on the clock. The dude turns me to the clock. It's 3:50 on the clock, exactly 24 hours after this thing happened. And he says, "God's about to send you people and signs, accept them when they come." And I'm like, that's the dopest trick I've ever seen in my life. How did y'all coordinate that? Because again, I'm very reductionist. I'm very
Yeah.
pragmatic. I'm very pragmatic, but for the next 2 to 3 weeks, random people, there were instances, "Hey, God sent me to you." And we walked and we talked. We never spoke about religion. It was just as an idea. And it turns out I was supposed to become an atheist the entire time because in order for me to see how it all fits together, I needed to be a blank slate. You can't carry beliefs or old agreements you've made with yourself into understanding. And that is how it went down. So then one day I'm in the shower and this is when I'm getting all these visions and I've seen the body of the universe. I've been through the body of the universe. I've been to portions of the universe through this thing that's connected to me because it's where it goes, my awareness goes. So I've been to portions of the universe where it's sky blue. The firmament, what we call outer space, it's sky blue. And you're just kind of like, well, shit, this destroys everything we think we know about light. Goddamn. But yeah, man, it's like I was in the shower, water's pouring on my head, And it's like, this is after I'm having all these visions, and I don't know what to do with it, because it's like, again, I'm a pragmatist who knows how to make sense of the world through measures and through human instruments. And that is what my identity was based on: being smart, being intelligent, everyone thinking, oh, Don, he's a genius. Oh, he's so smart. He's so special. And then all of a sudden, seeing things that I couldn't make sense of, man. So I'm here, and like, one day, I called Vince, because it all started with this artist who I was working with. And I'm like, I called him up and I'm like, hey man, and you have to forgive me if I'm skipping around the story a bit, because it's like I had to get to the portion before I was in the shower. I called Vince up and I'm like, dude, man, if this God thing is real, if it's real, what what do you think it wants from me? And it was like,
You were starting to come over to the other side at that point.
I was, and I'm gonna finish this up real quick. I was like, it's like he said, don't ask God what he wants from you, ask God what he wants for you. So one day I'm in the shower and man, my girlfriend at the time, she was an alcoholic. I didn't know what to do. I was a narcissist, and I'm like, you're not representing me the way I want to be represented. I was a terrible person back then. But I was in the shower, and in my most humbled state, I'm kind of like, oh, what do you want for me? And then walls cast out. This part, this is exactly how it happened. I'm not embellishing. This is exactly how it happened. The walls cast out. Everything looks like it's translucent, and I can see through everything. It's just insane. It's like everything is, and I'm like looking at my hands, and everything's like a shadow of everything. And I'm touching my hands together, and these ripple effects are just going through me. And then all of a sudden, my body is overtaken with this euphoria that felt very much like the arc of an orgasm, but it's very non sensual. And I'm like, all right, so I lost my fucking mind. Okay. All right. So I'm tripping out. And then all of a sudden, my body goes on autopilot. It shuts off the water. And I'm in the same way that I'm conveying this to you now, the same lucidity that you can perceive the ebb and flow of taking in information and bouncing it back. It was there the entire time. There was no near death experience. There were no drugs involved. There was nothing. My body goes on autopilot. I shut off the water. I grab the towel and wrap it around me. And then I lay down on my bed, and everything cast out again. And I'm not in my body. All of a sudden, I'm in this space where I'm just kind of like, okay, so I really lost my shit, huh? Wow, I must be insane. I must be crazy. Then all of a sudden, I'm aware of this presence. And then I understand that I'm in the presence of God. Now, when you're in heaven, and this is the state condition humans refer to as heaven. There's no physicality. There's no rules. There's no barriers. There's no partitions. There's no knowledge. Like even over there when I'm communicating, I'm trying to add I got a chance to ask questions. My awareness was formatted in such a way that I could only ask questions in binary form. So whenever the answer to the question was yes, this bliss feeling, this euphoria, it would intensify. And whenever the answer was no, it literally felt like talons digging into the bottom of my heart. Like and it was like I was there, and I asked a bunch of questions, and I wasted all the questions because they were defensive questions. They were designed to protect my identity, not ask like things that matter. And I still regret that to this day. But again, I was a narcissist. But then all of a sudden, it's like I was made aware I'm hosting this thing, and I'm like, dude, you're fucking kidding me. And for the next couple months, you got to understand, after I came out of that state, I felt the bliss and the peace that I'd never felt in my entire life. But I also, I also was conflicted, because there goes my identity. There goes all my knowledge. There goes everything that made me who I was. And I fought tooth and nail to make that a figment of my imagination. And as it turned out, every time I tried to convince myself it was a lie, even though I was back in the physical plane, those claws came digging right up into the bottom of my heart. And I'm like, son of a bitch, this is real. So then you have to how do I make sense of this? Because it doesn't come with a fucking instruction manual. And you're like, what? So, and forgive me if I'm just going to, but it's a detailed story, but it didn't just begin and end with me going to heaven or me having any sort of ideas about who and how I am. All of this stuff happened, and then I started doing things like universal math. And I don't know if you saw universal math, but it's like, it's the math of natural organization. And I put that video out in 2012. And in it, I demonstrate how prime numbers in conjunction with values of Civa 5 and Civa 7 serve to create the frame from which RNA and DNA coding emerge. And it's very simple. It's three-dimensional math, whereas, human maths are modal and or linear directional. But it's like, dude, I never fucking cared about math. Why do I know this? I know all this. I shouldn't know these things, but I do. And every time. And here's what verifies the situation, the circumstance more than anything is the fact that in my most honest, state, I realize I'm not smart enough to do this on my own.
Mm.
That's like my saving grace. Like that's what keeps me grounded in this experience and lucid through it all is the fact that it's like, dude, were you really a mathematician like that where you could do three-dimensional math and nobody, like you can do a type of math that nobody else is doing in the history of species? Are you really that smart? And I'm like, no, nah. Even when I was a narcissist, I'm like, nah, I couldn't do that. I could. When I'm talking about, did a video series called Organizing Intelligence, in which I broke natural intelligence down, which is intuition based, and then viral parasitic intelligence down, which is based in idealism. And it's like it makes sense of everything that we've been studying through psychology and through neuroscience and all these other things. I understand how the ego is actually a physical parasite located in the human body that's probably linked into or hooked up right next to the hypothalamus, and how it feeds on hormones and neurotransmitters produced by the human body, which accounts for the majority of personality traits in people. And here's the thing, I'm not smart enough to do this on my own.
Mm.
I'm just not. And there's nothing I could do to convince myself that I am, because I know what I was before. I thought I was a genius before, but to have that leap of intelligence within that short time frame with nothing to account for it, I'm not that good. I'm just not.
It seems to be a hallmark of these types of experiences. They're humbling. Like you described it perfectly, right? Like you had it all figured out, and then you had an experience that showed you that actually no, no, you had nothing figured out, and that is humbling. I mean, especially if you're the way you described yourself previously, which another thing I can relate with. I used to be certain of many, many, many things, absolutely certain, and then I had this experience like 8 years ago, and then I realized, holy fuck, I don't know anything. And so yeah, that's part of it. And I think the other part that you're describing is almost like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're almost saying like, not me, but God through me. Like the stuff that you're connecting and that you're putting out there, you're acknowledging that it's not coming from Donald King, the human being. And that's another, at least in my experience, it's another motif, because it's like, that didn't come from me. I'm sorry. I can't take credit for that. My hand might have been moving, the pencil might have been moving, but I didn't think of that. I didn't come up with that. That's not me. So I totally get where that comes from. But so did you start doing research at all, or is this all downloads that you got directly from you're the avatar, directly from source, I guess you could say?
Both. So here's the thing, and this is what most people don't understand. No one was a bigger skeptic than me. Here's the thing, I went looking for the best minds I could find to prove that I was full of shit. And the reason why is because if they could falsify me, then that means I could give it up and get back to doing what I wanted to do with my life. I want to be naked on a beach with beautiful women, just making love. I love women. I do. I do. So I'm sitting here and it's like, I just want, like, I'm a musician. I have a library of songs that I want to build out. I can invent things. I can do all these other things, which ironically I found out my alleged IQ, and the reason why I was always able to do all this stuff is because I always had a cheat sheet playing in the back of my mind. You know how fucking humbling that is? When you sit here and you think that you're a goddamn genius, and then all of a sudden you find out, oh no, you had something helping you the entire time. It invalidates all the great things that you think you did. So it's like, imagine you were running a race and you were like a Usain Bolt and you were the fastest person in the world, and all of a sudden you found out that somebody was just low-key feeding you steroids. You're like,
Dosing you.
yeah, they were dosing you, and you're kind of like, all those races that you won, it's like, yeah, there was some natural talent involved there, but I mean, was it all you? Can you really be super proud of it? And that hurt more than you could imagine. So it's like there was no upside to this. I like, as an intelligent person, there was no upside to this, and I was kind of like, yo, um, let me go in. So people would be like, oh yeah, well, you think you're so smart, you think you're better than us. Oh, yeah, have you read this? And I'm like, no. What are you talking about? So they would point it out to me, and I would go and read through it. Some things I would peruse it, but because I see everything in principles, I could read two sentences of something and I understood the entire concept from two sentences, how the avatar perspective works in me. And I'll just explain this to you real quick. It's like, so imagine it's like just basically being able to see like through the matrix, like you see everything in ones and zeros, but for avatar, it's like quaternary. So you see everything in ones, twos, and threes, and then you see zero as a non-value, which is sort of traced back to parasitism and or corruption, but that's beside the point. The point is, it allows me to take a conceptual structure. Someone mentions a concept. I understand the basic gist of the concept. Then all of a sudden, my mind will turn it into a principle. And I can turn that principle into an object that I can scale to any size. I can look on the inside, I can look on the outside, I can spin it in any direction that I want to, and we're all within a matter of seconds. So it's like it's not hard for me to make sense of things. So this is how it works for me. And then when the avatar perspective, the entity is trying to communicate to me, it'll take life experiences, things that I've lived through, it'll distill those down, and it'll say, remember this, remember that. What is the situational math of this right here? And then I'm like, oh, and it's sped up through the years, so I can do this very quickly now. But the reason why I mention all that is because, it's like, I studied to make sure that what I'm seeing is legit. It's like, you know what I'm saying? So it's like,
Yep.
I see things through the avatar perspective. Humans have done all of this work and made some brilliant discoveries. And I'm not an elitist. I'm like, hey, man, shit, if you did the work, let me do the work too. I sit here and I'll peruse through it. And every time what I see has come out more complete and more consistent than convention without fail. And so a lot of it is download, but it's like, in order to vet it, I let myself get tested by the sharpest minds I can find on the planet. I'm looking for people to invalidate me. I'm looking for people to say, you're full of shit and here's why. And to date, as much as I've been looking, I haven't been off. And again, I can't take personal credit for it, but I haven't been off.
Mhm.
I've been looking for somebody to say, "Oh man, you're full of shit." Oh, word, yeah, I quit. Okay, it was a good run. It was a good run. We did that. It was a good chase. It was a good chase. Intelligence agencies. I gotcha. I've been looking for that, and there are no easy outs here. And
Mm-mm.
that's ultimately what it was. I was looking for the easy out, and reality was like, nah, there's no easy outs here, bro. You're
Nobody
gonna
picks this.
you don't. So here's the
Nobody
thing.
picks this.
I'm verbose. Please tell me about your story.
Oh no, man. No, no, no. This is about you, brother. No, this is I want to chat with you. I want to get to know you. And I mean we'll interject. I'll interject more as we continue. But like, no, man, I like listening to you talk and I like listening to your stories. So
oh,
um I think, well, all right, here's something I want to hear you talk about. You
Okay.
mentioned Lao Tzu. The Tao Te Ching is one of the central spiritual texts in my sort of like holy trinity of books.
Oh, wow.
It's one that I read every year and I love it. I don't claim to understand it, but I love it. And so like I've seen a lot of similarities between like the Tao Te Ching and other spiritual texts. And have
Mhm.
you noticed like parallels and sort of patterns and similarities in all of these different paths that you've studied?
I'll be honest, I never studied the Tao Te Ching.
Oh yeah.
I I found out that I'm the successor of this guy
Uh-huh.
when I met them in the other plane.
Nice.
I didn't know any of these people. So it's like here's the thing, and I'm telling you that this is the weirdest shit. I didn't know Gandhi was an avatar. Like I'm telling you, and there's a whole I probably shoot a video on this, but it's like these I've met all of them, and like the last person to come down was he came down, he was like a comet. And then I saw these like glasses and it's like blue and red. And I'm like, Gandhi? And I didn't know shit about Gandhi. You gotta understand, I I didn't know anything about this dude. And then I went and after I spoke to Nazir, my buddy who was with me that day. I spoke to his father. He was like, "Oh, do you know anything about Gandhi?" I'm like, "I don't know shit about the guy." I didn't know Quetzalcoatl. I didn't know I didn't know any of them because
Yeah.
it's like I didn't care.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah. But
but
after these experiences, did you, like you said, you fact checked yourself? You went and read the books, or you went and looked into those things after the fact, or
well, I'm gonna say the only person who I can honestly say that I've actually looked at with any sort of um, consistency would be the story of Jesus, and the reason why is because it's like I know that the Bible is full. Half of it is parasitic, a lot of it has truth in it, and it's like it's like I wanted to use this to sort of read through to see what the bullshit was versus what was true. And the only thing that I read, everything that came out of Jesus was true. But here's the thing about the Tao Te Ching, and even and just any of them, I see the exact same things that they saw. So when I look at old quotes from Lao Tzu, when I look at old quotes from even like from Gandhi, I know that they're looking at the same body of principles as
Mhm.
me. Even when it comes, there's a type of word math
Mhm.
that goes into what they say. And it's like after a while, if you're looking through the same lens as somebody, you're kind of like, okay, well, I can go back and I can spend all the time vetting me, or I can look at all these bodies and principles and see all the shit that you guys didn't get to. That is the that's also here's what we have to take in consideration. Modern languages are so much more advanced. When I do the universal math, Jesus couldn't have done that. Gandhi couldn't have done that because it's like the reason why they couldn't do that because there would be nothing to pair it to like in their day. They didn't
Mhm.
know about the genome. They didn't know about all these other things. So how would he bring? How would they have
Yeah.
brought that
Human
information?
knowledge is like scaffolding, right? And so it like builds up on top of itself. So you can't go from the bottom floor all the way to the top, right?
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's how it ends up happening. But
Yeah,
it's like
totally.
I haven't had time to go back and fact check all of them. But it's like it also gets into what my life purpose is. And if I'm supposed to actually be translating these principles into English, I probably need to I've spent enough time vetting myself to make sure that I'm not full of shit.
Mhm.
And now if I do have these magic goggles the way that I purport to,
Mhm.
it is in everyone's best interest for me to archive as much as I see through this perspective so that it just goes to help people in ways like let them scrutinize it and like try to build on it years after the fact. But while I have the vision, let me get to work archiving. Imagine you had someone gave you these glasses and all of a sudden you could see into tombs of Atlantis. And everybody had their speculations about what was down in these tombs, but you could see in these tombs, and these glasses they were only for you. So you're
Mhm.
kind of like, oh man, there's some vases, there's some urns in there. I know somebody else had these glasses before me, and they saw into that corner, but there's a whole fucking tomb down here, man. What's over in this corner? wait, what's above me? What? And you try to capture as much as you can, and you hope that. And I'll tell you this right now, this is probably the biggest thing that I grapple with every day. It's very much like parenthood, and that you just hope you're not fucking it up.
I don't think you can, man. I don't think you can fuck it up. You can only do what you're doing, the best that you can, what you think is right, and that's what everybody's out there doing. It's just, at least you're reflective. Like, you reflect on yourself. You didn't just have these experiences and go, yeah, I'm an avatar, bow to me. You started to like question it. You didn't just accept it and go and run with it. And so I think as long as you're mindful of what you're doing and saying, as long as in your heart you feel like it's the right thing to do and it's what you're supposed to do, then you can't really screw that up.
Let me ask you this. If you found out you were this thing, now, again, I'm glad. Oh, first of all, I used to be a narcissist. So once I became this thing, reality, God, or whatever you want to call it, it put me through the most epic, humbling process imaginable. It stripped me of all my worldly possessions. It put, with the exception of my truck, I had to sleep on people's floors. I could, regardless of how hard I tried, and I'm a genius, or at least, how hard I tried, no door, no door would open for me. I had to go to enemies for help. I had to go and do grunt work for people who I didn't like. And this was all part of the humbling process, because imagine it like this. Imagine God gave you a Ferrari. God is like, you're not going to wreck my fucking Ferrari. This is for you to run errands for me in. Okay, so I'm going to put you through this driver's ed course. But you're like, but I already know how to drive. And if
No,
you
you
have,
don't. No, you
exactly.
don't.
Imagine if you had this Ferrari, the first thing you want to do is go and flex. You want to drive past the club. Hey, ladies, you want to go past the club real slow. Hey, girls, you pull up to the light and you want to race people and stuff like that. And before I got a chance to do any of this work, I had to go through the most epic, humbling process. Man, I thought I was going to break several times, but only thing it did was strengthen me. And I'm grateful. I'm for all the shit that I've been through. I have nothing but the highest level of gratitude and respect. And it makes me look at everybody with love. And it also makes it so that it's like, I don't, I don't look at anybody like I could ever be better than them, because I'm constantly reminded of where I came from. I'm like, yo, man, I attack narcissism, but I attack it as a behavior based outlook on life, not something that is inherent or innate to the person. Because, hey, man, I used to be a fucking raging narcissist. I know what it's like. And it's like, sometimes it's like, I gotta, hey, no, you're not gonna bully me and force me to shut up so as to satisfy your
Mhm.
desire to dominate the space. But hey, I love you, motherfucker. Come here. I know where you came from. I was there too. I'm not above anybody. Let me get in here. Hey, if I could show you something that helped me, I'm happy to do it. And this is the way that it goes. When you have a real, like when you're really in sync with reality, when you really go through that process, it doesn't, it like everybody's like, oh, you're just a narcissist. No, I used to be a narcissist. You can't be in this role and be a narcissist, because your identity is always going to take hits. You're always going to be hated. You're always going to be, people are always going to take shots at you. They're always going to try and tear you down. And if protecting your identity, because that's what narcissism is, it's an addiction to the identity. And protecting your identity is paramount to your being. Then there's no way you would take this sort of heat. This is all about humbling. And even if in the end all I'm able to help is one or two people, I mean, just if it helps them get from where I was before, I did something. I
Yep.
did something.
Yeah, man. And based on that, I feel like there's no way you can screw it up. I mean, you've got pure motives. What you're doing is good. And like you said, any effort in this arena, none of it goes to waste. Even if you gain an inch, like you said, even if you only help one person, it has a ripple effect and it cascades. And right now in this day and age, I feel like we need more of that, more light, more love, more wisdom. a non-dualistic approach and perspective on life, because the binary yes no, you're either with us or against us, you're either this or that, that division is a cancer. And I feel like this is the moment for us to come together and excise that cancer. And so my next question for you is, having this kind of main line to source, what what are your views on the current paradigm, the current situation with the pandemic and government potential overreach? Maybe not, maybe it's just the right amount of reach, but what are your views on kind of the current situation?
I think that, and it's like I'm gonna have to go to avatar mode on this. I think that when you're dealing, all right, so let's go to the top. I'm gonna take you all the way to the top here. So society itself is parasitic in nature. Okay, it is a virus. It is a disease to the body of this planet. Now, what most people don't understand about all viral parasitic beings is they source to a parasitic twin universe. This universe is a organism. It is a body that is currently under attack by a sibling that has fallen under the spell of corruption. Okay. Now, the reason why it's important to understand that is because when you are looking at any sort of viral parasitic life form, what you're looking at is, in essence, a structural building block belonging to this parasitic twin universe that is basically burrowing into, cannibalizing, transforming the body of its host. Now, the reason why I mention that is because what you are seeing happening at a global scale right now is just basically a parasite trying to overtake a host. And all of the aggressive actions carried out by those in positions of power and social authority, what they are in essence doing, it is biomechanical in nature. They think that they're playing this game that they are far ahead of the populace in, and especially with respect to the gathering and exercising of power and authority, money being liquid authority, and like trying to transform the world so as to live and benefit not just at the expense of the species of humanity, but at the expense of the planet itself. It's biomechanical in nature. So all of the government overreach, um, especially in the patterns, they're really, it's really bad storytelling. Like, for instance, if you look at what's happening here in the United States, in the past geez, presidency, the past presidency, every, and forgive me, I'm going to bring it down to this level here because we talked about it at the higher scale, so you understand what's happening at a biomechanical level. Now you look at it sort of at a socio-political level. You look at what's happening. So all but two presidents within the history of this country, they're all part of the same family. Trump is related to Obama, is related to the Clintons, is related to all these other things. And then you have James Buchanan way, way back in the day. And then Joe Biden, who, these are the only two who are not part of these families. And the reason why that's interesting, the reason why that's interesting is because if you look at what happened in Russia and you look at what happened in Nicaragua, you have these authoritarian leaders put into positions of power. These authoritarian leaders are put into positions of power, and there's a pushback in the country. And people are like, oh no, we don't like this, we don't like this. Then they bring in someone who's inept, and then the inept person does everything to like really press upon the population. Oh God, we were better off with the other guy. and they bring him right back. And you're just sitting here like, this is just bad writing at this point. Like, you did it. They did it in Russia. They did it in Nicaragua. And it looks like the play that's going on in the United States. And it all seems like this really brilliant, like if you're looking at it from the level of humanity, then it's like, you're sitting here and you're like, oh man, it's like there's so many layers of idealism in this and all that. When you're looking at it from as an avatar, you're like, yeah, it's just a parasite trying to
Yeah.
take a hook. So it's like it becomes very reductionist. It doesn't have the glitz and glamour, like the storytelling. It just doesn't have the glitz and glamour to
Yeah.
me. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, y'all couldn't come up with a better like game plan. Like even if they like if let's say Trump were to bow out right now and they brought someone who was just like him, the pattern would still fit. It's like you want an authoritarian people in positions of power, Boris Yeltsin. Well, you could probably say Trudeau, but he's more like a Barack, where it's
He
like
is.
it's still authoritarian power, but it's smooth and
It's
it's
charismatic.
charismatic and
Yeah,
subdued. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. He's good at, he's got good PR and branding, that Trudeau guy.
the branding. That's the best way to that's the best way to say it. But it's like again, from the avatar perspective, and just based on how I'm able to see the principles, it's just a parasite trying to overtake a host. Where I come in is reality. The system of reality itself is destroying corruption. It's destroying corruption. Corruption is a creator of imbalance. And this parasitic twin, its structural building blocks are, again, they're burrowing into, cannibalizing, and transforming the body of the universe and reality, the system, via the thing that I'm hosting. It's like, I'm calling a cease and desist. You're about to become a fucking conjoined twin. Anything that remains in an aggressor state will have to answer to me, because once I've called stop, I called stop. But once I call stop, any action you take beyond that, it gets reflected back to you a thousandfold. And that is basically the crux of my work. Like, a system of reality is like, first of all, let's get out of idealism. Humans, you are not creating reality from your imagination. The shit was already here before your species, before your planet, before the body of this universe, before the species it belonged to, before all of the species in conjunction with the species it belongs to, forming the larger building block that they belong to. Reality was here before all of that shit. It said, stop, listen to it, or catch this fade. It's not a negotiation. It's not. It isn't something that you have a choice in the matter in. You will cease and desist with your aggressive campaign, or you will catch the absolute worst beatdown of all time. The distortion. We'll talk about that at some point. But it's like, you think hell is bad? Oh my god, the distortion, it is like the worst. Like,
Hmm.
it's so bad, I don't even like using the avatar perspective to look into it. It is, there are things that are so much worse. The worst thing humans know is pain, physical or emotional pain. There are so many things in existence so far worse than pain, and that is the distortion, is like all of them together. It's just reality's purging system. It's how it cleans corruption
Mhm.
out of the principal expressions and or what humans refer to as spirits. It has to purge corruption with extreme prejudice, absolutely and thoroughly. And however long it takes to scrub corruption out of your potential and out of your spirit, that process, it's the worst. I like, and that's another reason why it's like I spend so much time trying to help people, because when you can see through the perspective what's coming, I get that people don't give a shit if people don't care if they haven't experienced it. It's real easy to be like dismissive towards things, but it's like a little kid playing next to a volcano. You're kind of like, dude, and the volcano's about to erupt. And even if it doesn't erupt, they're playing on loose rocks and they're about to fall into that lava. And you're kind of like, um, get away from that little kid. You don't know what it is. And they're, no, I'm gonna dance and play. Okay, motherfucker, get.
Sounds like my kids.
my little boy, he's like that sometimes too. And I'm kind of like, geez, dude, what? But he's autistic, like dear old dad. So anyway, I'm talking to back to
No,
you.
man, it's good. It's good. So tell me more about this. I mean, so how do you do this? How do you purge the corruption? Is it something that you do in a visionary state? Something that you do like just as a function of being? Like right now, everything around you is being purified because of the of the source that's in you, or how does it work?
That works well. I give humans tools to help them purge themselves of corruption.
I
See,
like that.
if you, if you, if here's the thing, if you make a mess in reality, reality does not forgive. If you make a mess, you fucking clean it up. This, this is the way that it works at a mechanical level. If you make a mess, you clean it up, right? And here's the thing. So the main things that it's like I really try to focus on is helping people learn how to really connect with reality as a system and to come out of idealism. And how you do that is by getting them to really focus on reasoning and honesty. When you stop living inside the identity, when you stop living inside the social character and you start syncing up with what's happening around you, and you place less emphasis on who you want to be and more emphasis on the impacts you're making on reality, then all of a sudden you start becoming conscientious, and you're like, hey, no, maybe I don't need, maybe I don't need to collect money for sport. Maybe, just maybe, I can subsist on what I need to, and I see an imbalance over here. Let me take this little bit of extra that I have here and help create balance over here, bring balance to space over here. In that way, you're assisting reality.
Hmm.
But see, when once you start reasoning and honesty, you start practicing reasoning and honesty, then your faculty of intuition cuts on. And intuition is the sort is sort of like an invisible umbilical cord through which reality downloads
Mm.
information into you. And I'm telling you things that you understand. I'm probably using a little bit different language, but this is something that I feel you've experienced yourself.
Hmm.
Like
Absolutely.
based on what you were describing a little bit earlier, the more that you start practicing reasoning and honesty and really start getting past the identity, the story you tell yourself about the
Mm.
world around you and your place and value within it, then all of a sudden reality starts communicating with you. And then all of a sudden you're sitting here and you're like, hey man, I'm gonna go right. And then all of a sudden something's gonna tell you, that's not for you. And you step left and you avoid a calamity because the system of reality is communicating with you at that point, is guiding you. Like, hey, no, hey, like even right now, you reaching out and saying, hey, let's have this thing right now. This, it's not you. Reality down the, hey, look, connect with your brother, connect with your brother, and look at the beautiful conversation we're having right now.
Absolutely, man. Yeah.
Just
Yeah, when
based.
you're plugged in, man, you get you're in the flow of it, right? You're not going against the current, and things carry you where you need to be, and things happen that are too much to be a coincidence, and you sync up with people. And yeah, man, I get you, man. You're on the highway. You're on the super highway now. You're not stuck in traffic anymore.
I love how you said all of that. That was so well. That was so well articulated, man. It's like I envy your ability to articulate. Now,
Oh man, you're very articulate yourself, and I love listening to you talk. I'm not gonna lie, man. You're hypnotic almost. I'm just like getting into your story. So no, I love this. It's great, and yeah, you're right. It's different language, but that's what I've noticed from again reading a lot of these books and studying some of the wise ancient masters is that they're all using different vernacular, different words for the same realities or aspects of realities or experiences that can be the words don't matter. The words take you to the experience, and then when you experience it, you're like, I get it now. And you can say it totally differently from me, but I see the experience behind it, and I it's a familiar one in some ways, right? So yeah, it's interesting that the verbiage changes, but it's it by its fruits.
dude, it's like, I'm loving. I love the way you put that together. You know, it's really interesting. I was down in Costa Rica, and I had this girl who I was seeing down there, and what ended up happening was we were hanging out with one of her friends. Her friend was talking about when she was on the beach. She had this ex-boyfriend, and the ex-boyfriend couldn't speak a word of English. And they were down in Florida, but he would just walk up to people and he would start talking to them in Spanish, and they understood him and he understood them. And it wasn't about the language barrier. It wasn't about the language barrier. What it was is, and I'll say this right now because it goes to the point that I was making a little bit earlier about reasoning and honesty. You see, when you are reasoning and you're honest, you know what you're trying to do ultimately? You're trying to understand. And you see, understanding is that that fundamental, that substrate of language. It doesn't matter what words we use. It
Mhm.
doesn't matter what language we speak in. When you're trying to understand and I'm trying to understand, we're dialed in. When we're dialed into reality, and you see, you can't understand from the identity. You can only understand when you set the identity aside and you try to dial into reality. And when you dial into reality, you plugged into the source, and it's just like music. It doesn't matter if you're playing the piano and I'm playing the guitar. At the end of the day, C is C.
Mm.
Might have different timbres. We might have different timbres, but C is C. You strike a C7 and I strike a C augmented 9, and they may not always be exactly complementary, but it's like once we start adjusting, then all of a sudden we playing harmoniously, and people are like, "Who the fuck is that band? Why
Making jazz, baby.
why are they so good?"
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah, and to me, it's like, yeah, it's the same song, right? I mean, it's the
Yeah,
same song, and it's
mhm,
God's song, or
yeah,
whatever you want, whatever term you want to use. But when you've heard the song, it doesn't matter if you see it in China, 2,000 years ago, or ancient Rome, or India. It's the
mhm,
same song. You recognize it because you've heard it before. It's like,
yeah,
yes, familiar tune. I think I know this one. it's
exactly.
it's the
And
capital T truth. There it is.
that's a beautiful. And again, it goes just back to this point. You you can't hear this song if you're trapped in your identity. If you're cocooned in your inner story, you cannot hear it. Only people who've been strong enough to set the identity down and try to see and understand things for what they are, as opposed to trying to make everything conform to the system of agreements they've made with themselves, only they can hear the stories. If you and this is the thing, there's a symbiosis here. So when I'm talking to you, it's like even in the stare of your eyes, there's a calm there. There's a thing that says, I don't see your eyes darting back and forth like, oh man, he's saying something that's gonna threaten me. So you're not your eyes are not darting, trying to search for things to protect your identity. There's a fluidity, there's a calm. When you reach that point, you just know. When other people have reached a point, you inherently understand. When you're operating from a space of understanding, it's very easy to identify people who are operating from a space of understanding. And you're kind of like, oh, okay, okay, yeah, I get it. And it just makes for ebb and flow, makes for ebb and flow. And that's what it boils down to. So, ultimately, I hope that I do this as well as I possibly can. I know that it comes with obstacles. I understand that it comes with drama, trials, gains, and losses. And the gains that I get, they may not be socio material, and the losses that I take, they may be socio material. But at the end of the day, as long as my life was not wasted and I spent it in service to reality, I can't say that it's bad. And that in itself, the fact that I don't have anything to complain about, it's one of the greatest gifts I received in my life. So there is never a day I go without gratitude and just awe. Because I'm still in this experience with you guys. I may be a fucking avatar, but I'm learning about it along with everyone else. I'm
Yeah.
like, what is I learned about a body of principles? The funny part about it, I was literally, I'll be someone asked me a question like on those Reddit. Mark is the guy who says, "Hey, I'm going to post your content on Reddit for me," and I'm like, "Okay." He's like, "I'm going to see people ask questions." I'm like, cool. So he asks these questions, and a lot of times people ask me questions, and they'll make me look through the avatar perspective in a section I hadn't looked in before, and I see a whole brand new body of principles, and I'm like, son of a bitch, God,
Still more.
it's still more. So it's like
Yes.
I'll type it out and I'll go back and read it, and I'm learning from shit that I just typed, and I'm sitting here like, you don't say. What? Are you what? Are you serious? That's how it works, man. I learn as I'm doing it, and I don't have all the answers. I don't have all the knowledge. I just show up and I do the best that I can. And I don't know how it's all going to play out. I don't know if this is going to be just a blip in the grand scheme of things. I don't know what this cycle of avatars, like I know I'm Avatar cycle 13, at least so far as I'm aware. And I know that any I know basic rules about what happens to how avatars function within the space, but whether or not this cycle is going to have the effect that reverses everything or not, I'm not allowed to know that. The only thing I can do is just show up and try, and that's kind of like being a dad. I I became a dad at 38. I don't know how to do this shit, but it's every
How old's your son?
he's 7 now, but he's on the autism spectrum. He's pretty deep on the autism spectrum, and it's a lot of there's a lot of caveats. There's a lot of twists and turns. I don't, and it's like I don't always know how to do it, but you know, I'm always gonna show up and do my fucking best. I'm always gonna show up and do my best, and it's like how it's supposed to come past, how it's supposed to come to pass, and that's the only thing. The only thing that I want is to show up and do my part,
Hmm.
and that's I think that's probably the best way to say it. See, everybody wants to be in control of reality, and in everything that I've learned, I think probably the best lesson to date has been only do your part. Like if God puts food on your plate, it's not God's job to put the food in your stomach. You still have to pick up that fork and you have to spear it and put it in your mouth and you chew. But it's like it's still you do your part. You don't have to do it all. You don't have to say, "Oh God, I have to go out here and kill the buffalo and I have to grill it." It's like the A1. Is you don't have to do all those other things. God is like, no, 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 no. Here, eat your vegetables. I got you.
Yeah, that reminds me of a joke, right? The guy who prayed to God to win the lottery, and finally the results came out. And God, why haven't you helped me? Why didn't you help me win the lottery like I prayed for? And God says, well, you could have at least bought a ticket. Right? That's kind of what you're saying is like he'll put the food on the table. You still got to eat that. He's not going to chew it for you and digest it for you.
Thank you.
you know, you still got to do your part, right? And it's the same with you. I mean, you were saying earlier about how like it's a blow to your ego when you realize that you've had a cheat sheet or that you had a force helping you secretly this whole time. But if the force had been helping you and you just been sitting on your ass playing video games, wouldn't have helped. So there's still, I feel like it's a co-creation. It's co-creative. To me, it seems like this force, this source, this spirit of wisdom, whatever you want to call it, it's latent in all of us, and anybody can awaken it. Anybody can awaken it and bring it into their lives and have similar experiences to what you and I are talking about, downloads and intuitions and synchronicities and all of those types of things. I feel like that is there for everyone. Now, I can't say that anyone can be an avatar. I wouldn't feign to speak on that topic. That's your subject of experience there. But I think that for as far as having a connection to source, being plugged in, like we were talking about, I feel like anybody could get there. Almost anybody can get there, And so what you're doing is giving the people the tools to get there
Thank
essentially.
you. Thank
Yes.
you. That's
Yeah,
that's
bless you, man. That's God's work. I mean, that's what we're all here doing, I think.
Thank you. Like even right now, this podcast right now, I think that it's like in your podcast series, and it's like I definitely want to check out other installments. But yeah, it's like you sit here, and that is in essence what you're doing as well. You're giving people tools to make sense of things, and I'm gonna say it like this: there's a difference between an educator and a teacher. An educator gives you knowledge to remember. A teacher points you in the direction of reality. A teacher is a person who points you down the path of truth. Truth being what's consistent with and actual within reality. It points you to the path of truth or points you down the path of truth, but it doesn't walk it for you or tell you what the end result is. A
Yeah.
teacher, and that seems to be what I think that you're hinting at and everything that you're talking about right now. Giving people tools is teaching them, hey, if you employ this, then this is going to help you get closer to that. It's not saying, hey, you know what, do this and do that and do this and do that and let me control your entire experience. No. Hey, you want to learn how to use this hammer? I'm going to show you by example how to use it. I'll give you a few pointers, but at the end of the day, you want to become a master welder? you're going to have to practice wielding that hammer. And
Mm,
you practice wielding that hammer, but then before you know it, you might surpass where I went. I'm happy to have shown you the way there, or the what you can get to reach your potential. I'm happy to show you an instrument for you to focus your potential through. But it's like it's where you go with it. That's up to you. I'm not giving you the knowledge, I'm giving you tools to acquire it with.
mm. Yeah, very important distinction, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the kind of knowledge that you're talking about is, again, not intellectual, symbolic, conceptual knowledge. It's felt, it's experienced.
Both, actually, to tell you the truth, when you get to a certain level, and I like, of all the stuff that I put out, it's a combination. Like when you get into reality, and this is a part, something I was talking about on one of my previous podcasts a few days ago. I was talking about, the subject of the podcast was fear makes you smart, cowardice makes you dumb.
Hmm.
Okay, and basically the point of it is everything in reality, it can be sort of organized into two very basic energies, and there's love and there's fear. And love is bonding, and we understand that we love is bonding. So when you love something, you feel bound to it. When you fear something, you put distance and separation. So there is bonding and there's distance and separation.
Mm.
These two in conjunction, they create balance. Fear is about organization, it's about spatial relevance. Look at your structural building blocks, even on your body. They're bound together, yet they are separate.
Hmm.
Look at the orifices, like you're speaking right now. Your mouth, it can close, but it can open because it is a combination of bonding and separation. This is the way that it works in a mechanical level. So, but this is even symbolized. This is even symbolized. So it's like, material. Material is by nature male, and space or void is by nature female. And this is symbolized in the sexual organs. So the penis occupies the actual space.
Yep.
The vagina is a void. It occupies negative space, or it represents negative space. This is the way that it works at a mechanical level. Like
Yep.
everything is, but this is, they're required for balance.
Hmm.
They're required for balance. So fear is, it is a, it's an essential thing. It's not a bad thing. It's it, even taking it into like the concept of sexuality. Love must penetrate fear and release into fear, and then fear of from fear, new life comes from the void.
Yep.
From the void, new matter forms,
Yep.
and the cycle continues. And it pairs with, um, what you can see in a double helix structure. It's this is the word. This is the thing about seeing everything in fucking principles. You're sitting here and you're trying to describe all these three-dimensional things that interlace together, and you're sitting here like, hopefully I didn't.
Patterns within
Yeah,
patterns on top of patterns,
dude.
connecting to more patterns.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
See all these posts that I put up. The avatar, just so the avatar will be like, okay, write this, and I'm like, God damn, I don't feel like doing it.
I
Okay.
want to go to bed, dude.
Yeah, it's like, it'll wake me up sometimes. They're like, you must capture this principle. And I'm sitting here, but it's like, here's the thing, it's connected to out in the world. So it's like, it's sitting here and it's like, this person over here needs to see this type, and it'll touch someone on the other side of the world. It'll touch someone at this particular place. And it just creates all these little tiny ripple effects.
Yeah.
But this is the way,
Planting seeds.
yeah, this is, and again, I'm not good enough to do this shit on my own. Like, this is the thing that it's like I really want to drive home. The thing, pardon me, the thing that makes that lends any sort of legitimacy to all of this being real is the fact that I am supremely aware of the fact I'm not good enough to do this shit. Like, I'm just sitting here like, man, it's like a lot of times I was like, I wish I were this good. I really you ever been envious of yourself? It's
I wish I could take credit for this.
yeah, man. Look, it's
Yeah.
like you sit here, you put
Well,
out a
the good
body of
news is
work.
you don't have to validate anything for me because, like I said, truth speaks for itself. And having had, again, similar experiences and things happen to me in my life that completely map out to your experiences, it's like, yeah, obviously, like 10 years ago, I would have said, "Oh, you sound like you're full of shit." But now that I've gone through very similar things firsthand and had those same thoughts, I mean, exactly the same thoughts as you. I had this experience in 2013, and the first thought in my mind was, did somebody drug me? Followed by, am I going fucking crazy? Those
Right.
those were the thoughts in order, because it was like, this feels a lot like ecstasy, and I'm familiar with that. And I know I didn't take any drugs, but I'm high as a kite right now. And then after that, it was like, or maybe I just blew a gasket somewhere in here, and now I should go check myself into a mental institute
I need your
because
story. I need the backstory. I need
no.
that. I need that. I need that.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, yeah, it was basically it's 2013 was when it happened. It was springtime, and I was at work. I worked for an insurance company. I was an underwriter at the time, so very mindless, repetitive work, and a lot of things were happening at this time in my life. I was expecting my second child. I had just picked up a cannabis habit, which I had never done before. And I was like in my 30s, never smoked weed in my life, and started doing it. So that loosened up a lot of ego structures in my experience. It kind of allowed me to question things that I never would have questioned before, or think about things that I never would have thought about. But, anyways, all these things kind of converged. And I had this blowout experience where essentially I was just kind of thinking about the state of the world and how everything seems so fucked. And I was like asking myself, like, what is the source of it all? Why are we so dysfunctional? We have so many gifts as a species. Like you said earlier, we've come up with all these amazing inventions, life-saving medicines, art, things of beauty, things that are inspiring. So why are we so fucked? Why can't we get our shit together? And then I had an answer, but it wasn't like a verbal answer. It was like I saw it. And it was so simple and so clear and so beautiful. And I was filled with love. I was filled with love. I wanted to stand on my desk and just like yell out to the entire office, like, I fucking love you. This is amazing. It's so simple. And just tell people, like, it's so simple. Like, I wanted to shake people and like, but then I started trying to put it into words. And that's when I started thinking, oh, fuck, maybe I'm going crazy, because I couldn't really say what it was that I had experienced and realized in that moment. So that kind of kicked off, research. And, for me, books are a big thing. So I started looking for books to read that might explain things. And this is when the weird shit started happening, because it was like, first book I read was like bang on answering questions and exposing things and showing me a way of looking at the world that I had never seen before. And so like everything kind of took me step by step. And yeah, I've just been kind of on this path ever since. And that feeling of euphoria, that feeling of being high without being high, probably lasted about 6 months. And I feel like I had a moment towards the end there where it was like, well, listen, you can go this way, and Ollie is no more. You're done. So how that's going to work out with your kids and your family and stuff, you'll still be there, but you're not going to be you anymore. Or you can hang on to this ego for a while, and when you're ready to let it go, let it go. And so I've just been kind of playing the role of Ollie ever since. And Ollie the father, Ollie the husband. And it's not to denigrate what I do. It's not like I'm a role is like making it any lesser. To me, it gives me a clear line of sight on what I'm supposed to be doing. Like an actor, here's my performance, here's my role. I want to do a good job. I want to be the best fucking father, the best husband, the best whatever friend. So that's how I'm kind of looking at it from the standpoint of the ego. And you've talked about the stories as well. So to me, that's a really helpful framework of looking at things like, what's my story? And like, if I'm getting triggered, well, what am I telling myself, or what part of my story is making me react in anger or insecurity and stuff like that. But yeah, so I mean, that's basically it. And then, yeah, in the last few years, it was very intellectual for the first like 5 or 6 years, I would say. And the last couple of years, I've been connecting with my feminine side, intuition, having downloads, like amazing, mind-blowing things like you, where I'm like, I didn't write this. I can't take credit for this stuff. So yeah, that's been about the 8-year journey, but lots of stuff obviously happened in those years. And, like the birth of my second child I was in the highest of highs in that first 6 months. And it's still to this day one of the most mind-blowing and amazing experiences I've ever had. Like, yeah. Anyways, I've been blessed, and like you, I feel grateful every day for the experiences I've had and the uh, revelations that I've seen. But yeah, and then I get to meet people like yourself, and I mean, there's lots of us out there, my friend. I don't know if you've encountered a lot of us, but there's more and more people waking up, man, and that gives me hope as well.
Hell yeah, man! It's like here's the beauty of it. When you hear someone really going through the experience, man, there's no way for you to not feel happy. There's no way for you to not feel fucking energized. You're like, fuck yeah. But
Yeah.
you sit here, I'm sitting here like, dog, yes, my dude. So, but yeah, but that's hey, and this is one thing that I want to lend to you as well. I actually have, so it's like, think about it like this. You're Superman who still puts on who still dresses up as Clark Kent. And this is the same thing that I have to do as an avatar. Like, I sit here and, there are a lot of people who, I've outed, I've outed myself. So it's like, I try to be little bits of Clark Kent every now and again, but it's like, people saw me take off my fucking glasses and take off my suit. They said, bitch, I'm fucking Superman. And they're like, I hate you so much. Damn you, Donald King, you're a fucking liar. And I'm sitting here like, word, shoot me. They shoot, and the bullets are bouncing off me. I don't believe it. Now everybody's searching for fucking kryptonite. But the point of it is, the point of it is, I get where you're going. Like, dude, it's like, yes, you, you, you can't go full Superman just yet. So it's like, you know what? You still have to you balance out between when to be Clark Kent and when to be Superman, and that makes perfect sense. I still try to find the balance in being Superman and Clark Kent, and sometimes the shit is hard, because it's like, you know what, your identity, it isn't just your ego, it is also your social currency. It is it is your primary tool for acquiring resources to survive one in society. So figuring out how to shirk that and to just be Superman is really, really tough. It's really tough. And, I applaud you for going for the balance. I try to keep the balance myself, but it's like this avatar function is just kind of like, I'm not going, you can't hide. This is shit that the species is supposed to hear. While you're in this body, this is shit the species is supposed to hear. You're going to do this. And I'm just sitting here like, and also I've seen what happens if I don't.
Mm.
Like, I've seen what happened. There are so many people. Here's the thing, we were all born into a fucked up circumstance. It's nobody's fault that we were born as parasites. It's nobody's fault that we were born into the current social condition. So even the people who are at the top right now, who are doing the absolute worst to the species, you have to understand that they were simply born into a circumstance too. They were born into a race. Someone gave them a baton and said, hey, catch up to and surpass the ones in front of you. Make sure that the ones who are behind you don't catch up to and surpass you, and they're just trying to win.
Mm.
And nobody ever stops to question the fucking purpose of the race or what they're racing to, until you get a person or an avatar or like enlightened individuals such as yourself who are like standing above the race and like, oh man, y'all are running into a slaughterhouse.
Or
Chill.
worse yet, you're just running in circles. You're not going anywhere. There is no finish line. It's endless. You got to get off the track, my friends.
You got to tell them to get off the track, and
Yeah.
then you have to say, like in the analogy I'm using with the slaughterhouse, you have to use. I'm like, you don't smell that blood, you don't,
Mm.
and you have to make them a little bit uncomfortable. You had to get them out of those comfort zones, so they actually question why they're doing these things. Like
Yeah.
I get, they're just trying to win. If you're an ideologue and or an aggressive parasite, your primary programming is to win. Think about a virion inside of a body or a virus inside of a body. It's competing to win. And if you're just going on the mode and you never question the mode, you're going to do all sorts of damage to that body just trying to fucking win. A
Yeah.
disease, here's how a disease works. A disease is just like society, where the disease itself is competing against the host's body, and how it advances itself is by incentivizing its virion to compete against each other.
Mm.
When you
Yeah.
when you understand that at a mechanical level and you start looking at humans and our addiction to competition, then you're sitting here like, oh, you're going to compete yourself right into oblivion. Oh,
That's
I'm
the
not going
Achilles tendon of capitalism. It's like
to.
wealth concentrated into fewer and fewer hands. Who's going to buy your shit? If you've
Yeah.
got all the money, dum dums, it's going to come down like a fucking rotten house of cards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's a perfect analogy for what happens in the
Yeah.
body. You won, but if the whole shit that you're in is died, just died, I mean, like it's a pyrrhic
You
victory.
lost. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It's like yeah, we torched the planet, but for a while we created real good value for our shareholders, you know?
We're
It's like,
I used to rule the world. They killed that song.
yeah.
So yeah, for some reason I can't explain. I know Saint Peter won't call my name uh, when I rule the world, but that's basically the gist of the song. Like, yeah, you did all these amazing things, but it's like it ended you in a tomb. And the worst part about it is, and this is the part that I really try to emphasize, you have to answer to reality after this. Like, it doesn't end here. Like this isn't the end of the
It didn't
fucking
start
story.
here, so
You can
it clearly didn't end here. Yeah. Yeah.
start here. It's not going to end here.
Yeah.
And for all the negative impacts you make on reality and to systems and beings in reality, when reality is rebalancing itself, that cost has to come from somewhere. If reality is a system, and think about it just in terms of your own body. If your body, like let's say you're having one kidney is not functioning properly, your body will reroute things to the other kidney and then it'll shut off function to this one kidney. If one of your eyes is not working, if one of your eyes is dim or not working compared to the other, then the eye will shut off information going to this eye and it'll become a lazy eye and you'll have to focus primarily through this eye. The reason why it does this because again, reality just in general, it balances itself.
Yeah.
And if you and I'm talking about even if crossing into the spiritual realm, if you do things to create imbalances, reality is going to have to take energy from you in order to bring about balance, and not just in the physical plane, and it
Mm-mm.
definitely happens in the spiritual plane.
This is karma that we're talking about in a sense, right? I mean, karma is the balance, and people tend to see it as like if I do something bad's going to happen to me, but it's no. It's just you created something bad, and that's going to carry forward, and it might come back to you, it might not. But the point is, there's going to have to be balance, like you said. It's going to have to come out of somebody's pocket, or it's going to have to land on somebody somewhere.
I'll I'll say it like this, and that's a very good connection that you made there. I'll say it like this: think about everything. Like we tend to see things very short sighted. The human life cycle, because we are immersed in society and we have to compete for survival, we end up missing out on a whole lot of information that can be taken in from reality in the way of cycles and patterns. We miss all sorts of natural patterns, but wave goes away and it comes back. You throw something in the air, it falls right back down.
Cause and effect.
Cause and effect.
Yeah,
It's
man.
coming back to you. So it's like if you make negative impacts on reality, you don't get to say, "Oh well, my body expired. It's not coming back to me." That's what cremains make with themselves.
Yeah.
Reality's like, no, motherfucker, your flesh,
Yeah.
your mortal coil expired. Everything that you did to create that negative wave that you sent back is coming crashing right back down to you, and it's coming back with ample force because you pushed it out. It's coming back twice as hard, and it's going
Mm.
to hit you.
Yeah.
So basically, everything that again, and I'm trying to help people understand, these are basic tools of reality. I'm
Mm.
explaining them. I'm giving you the insight on how this shit works at a mechanical level. So you don't go around making messes of reality because you think there's no consequence attached to them.
Yeah.
There's there's consequences attached to this shit. Don't be a dick.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's the golden rule right there. DBD, don't be a dick. It's so simple. Just don't be a dick. So easy. Donald, it's been a real pleasure talking to you. I feel like this don't be a dick is, I mean, can't get better than that. I think that's a great way to close it off. But I would love to do this again with you on your channel, live on Facebook,
Yes.
here, whatever you want, man. I love chatting with you and I had a great time.
Dude, I've enjoyed it. Thank you so much. And it's like, dude, I can't wait for you to post this, man, just because it's like I want people to see how dope you are, man. Like, dude, this is like
Oh,
awesome, man. This is
thank you. High compliments coming from you. Like I said, I love chatting with you. Love listening to you talk as well. You're very, very good speaker and very charismatic. And look forward to having more conversations with you and hearing more about what you have to say.
it's happening. It's happening. So
Awesome,
I'm
brother.
looking forward to it as well. Thank you so much, and thanks again. It's about to be midnight over here, so I'm about to go ahead and hop in bed. But you know what? Enjoy your day. Thanks for reaching out, man. And this has been an honor and privilege. It really
Right
has.
back at you, man. Same here. Have a great night.